Hello, we are live. I get some water real quick. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 7, NASB. When the Lord your God brings you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and clears away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than you. And when the Lord your God delivers them before you and you defeat them, then you shall utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, and show no favor to them. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you. But thus you shall do to them. You shall tear down their altars and smash their sacred pillars, and hoe down their Asherim and burn their graven images with fire. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his own possession, out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love on you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any of the peoples, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But because the Lord loved you and kept the oath which he swore to your forefathers, the Lord brought you out by a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps his covenant and his loving kindness to 1,000th generation with those who love him and keep his commandments, but repays those who hate him to their faces, to destroy them. He will not delay with him who hates him. He will repay him to his face. Therefore you shall keep the commandment and the statutes and the judgments which I am commanding you today to do them. Then it shall come about, because you listen to these judgments and keep and do them, that the Lord your God will keep with you his covenant and his loving kindness which he swore to your forefathers. He will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, your grain and your new wine and your oil, the increase of your herd and the young of your flock, in the land which he swore to your fathers to give you. You shall be blessed above all peoples. There will be no male or female barren among you or among your cattle. The Lord will remove from you all sickness, and he will not put on you any of the harmful diseases of Egypt which you have known, but he will lay them on all who hate you. You shall consume all the peoples whom the Lord your God will deliver to you. Your eye shall not pity them, nor shall you serve their gods, for that would be a snare to you. If you should say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, how can I dispossess them? You shall not be afraid of them. Wait, what? Sorry. If you should Oh, if you should say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, how can I dispossess them? You shall not be afraid of them. You shall well remember what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt, the great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs and the wonders, and the mighty hand and the outstretched arm, by which the Lord your God brought you out. So shall the Lord your God do to all the peoples of whom you are afraid. Moreover, the Lord your God will send the hornet against them, until those who are left and hide themselves from you perish. You shall not dread them, for the Lord your God is in your midst, a great and awesome God. The Lord your God will clear away these nations before you little by little. You will not be able to put an end to them quickly, for the wild beasts would grow too numerous for you. But the Lord your God will deliver them before you and will throw them into great confusion until they are destroyed. He will deliver their kings into your hand, so that you will make their name perish from under heaven. No man will be able to stand before you until you have destroyed them. The graven image of their gods you are to burn with fire. You shall not covet for yourselves. You shall not covet the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves. Or you will be snared by it, for it is an abomination to the Lord your God. You shall not bring an abomination into your house, and like it come under the ban. You shall utterly detest it, and you shall utterly abhor it, for it is something banned. Psalm 119 for 3. So Psalm 119, verse 116. Sustain me according to your word that I may live, and do not let me be ashamed of my hope. Uphold me that I may be safe. That I may have regard for your statutes continually. You have rejected all those who wander from your statutes, for their deceitfulness is useless. You have removed all the wicked of the earth like dross. Therefore I love your testimonies. My flesh trembles for fear of you, and I am afraid of your judgments. I have done justice and righteousness. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Be surety for your servant for good. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes fail with longing for your salvation and for your righteous word. Deal with your servant according to your loving kindness, and teach me your statutes. I am your servant. Give me understanding, that I may know your testimonies. It is time for the Lord to act, for they have broken your law. Therefore I love your commandments. Above gold, yes, above fine gold. Therefore I esteem right all your precepts concerning everything. I hate every false way. Your testimonies are wonderful, therefore my soul observes them. The unfolding of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple. I opened my mouth wide and panted, for I longed for your commandments. Turn to me and be gracious to me, after your manner with those who you love. After your manner with whose... I'm bad at reading. After your manner with those who love your name. Establish my footsteps in your word. Do not let any iniquity have dominion over me. Redeem me from the oppression of man, that I may keep your precepts. Make your face shine upon your servant, and teach me your statutes. My eyes shed streams of water, because they do not keep your law. Righteous are you, O Lord, and upright are your judgments. You have commanded your testimonies in righteousness and exceeding faithfulness. My zeal has consumed me because my adversaries have forgotten your words. Your word is very pure, therefore your servant loves it. I am small and despised, yet I do not forget your precepts. That, like, God's precepts, somebody make a graph, or somebody tell me what percentage of the verses in Psalm 119 have either God's precepts, testimonies, statutes, commandments, etc. This is amazing. Now for your precepts, your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your law is truth. Trouble and anguish have come upon me, yet your commandments are my delight. Your testimonies are righteous forever. Give me understanding that I may live. I cried with all my heart, answer me, O Lord, I will observe your statutes. I cried to you, save me, and I shall keep your testimonies. I rise before dawn and cry for help. I wait for your words. My eyes anticipate the night watches, that I may meditate on your word. Hear my voice according to your loving kindness. Revive me, O Lord, according to your ordinances. Those who follow after wickedness draw near. They are far from your law. You are near, O Lord, and all your commandments are truth. Of old I had known from your testimonies that you have founded them forever. This is great. This is great. John 12. Jesus, therefore, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they made him a supper there, and Martha was serving, but Lazarus was one of those reclining at the table with him. Mary then took a pound of very costly perfume of pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, who was intending to betray him, said, why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and given to poor people? Now he said this not because he was concerned about the poor, but because he was a thief, and as he had the money box, he used to pilfer. What does pilfer mean? I don't have my phone. He used to pilfer what was put into it. Therefore Jesus said, let her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. The large crowd of the Jews then learned that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might also see Lazarus, whom he raised from the dead. But the chief priests planned to put Lazarus to death also, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and were believing in Jesus. On the next day, the large crowd who had come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, took the branches of the palm trees and went out to meet him, and began to shout, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, even the King of Israel. Jesus, finding a young donkey, sat on it, as it is written, fear not, daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt. These things his disciples did not understand at the first, but when Jesus was glorified, then they remembered that these things were written of him, and that they had done these things to him. So the people who were with him when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to testify about him. For this reason also the people went and met him, because they heard that he had performed this sign. So the Pharisees said to one another, you see that you are not doing any good. Look, the world has gone after him. Now there were some Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. These then came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and began to ask him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip came and told Andrew. Andrew and Philip came and told Jesus. And Jesus answered them, saying, The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. If anyone serves me, he must follow me, and where I am, there my servant will be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. Now my soul has become troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? But for this purpose I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice out of heaven, I have both glorified it, and I will glorify it again. So the crowd of people who stood by and heard it were saying that it had thundered. Others were saying, An angel has spoken to him. Jesus answered and said, This voice has not come for my sake, but for your sakes. Now judgment is upon this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all men to myself. But he was saying this to indicate the kind of death by which he was to die. The crowd then answered him, We have heard out of the law that the Christ is to remain forever. And how can you say, The Son of Man must be lifted up? Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Wait, we have heard out of the law that the Christ is to remain forever. And how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man? So Jesus said to them, For a little while longer, the light is among you. Walk while you have the light, so that darkness will not overtake you. He who walks in the darkness does not know where he goes. While you have the light, believe in the light, so that you may become sons of light. These things Jesus spoke, and he went away and hid himself from them. But though he had performed so many signs before them, yet they were not believing in him. This was to fulfill the word of Isaiah the prophet, which spoke, quote, Lord, who has believed our report? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For this reason they did not believe, they could not believe. For Isaiah said again, quote, He has blinded their eyes, and he has hardened their heart, so that they would not see with their eyes and perceive with their heart, and be converted, and I heal them. These things Isaiah said because he saw his glory, and he spoke of him. Nevertheless, many even of the rulers believed in him, but because of the Pharisees they were not confessing him, for fear that they would be put out of the synagogue, for they loved the approval of men rather than the approval of God. And Jesus cried out and said, He who believes in me does not believe in me, but in him who sent me. He who sees me sees the one who sent me. I have come as light into the world, so that everyone who believes in me will not remain in darkness. If anyone hears my sayings and does not keep them, I do not judge him, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. He who rejects me and does not receive my sayings has one who judges him. The word I spoke is what will judge him at the last day. For I did not speak on my own initiative, but the Father himself, who sent me, has given me a commandment as to what to say and what to speak. I know that his commandment is eternal life. Therefore, the things I speak just as the Father has told me. I need to get a reading like recliner. Or maybe I need to steal the one from my parents' house because they're not there. Ooh, oh wait, that's actually a genius idea. If it'll fit in my car. Oh man, that's such a good idea because nobody's using it right now. Oh, that's such a good idea. Oh man. I think it's worth it too. Oh wow, I should have thought of that 6 months ago. Okay, nobody tell them my plan. Nobody spoil it. Anyways, this couch is great, but I don't know if it's the best for reading. It's got like this weirdly long seating part. I don't know. Okay, so that is speed. That's delightful. Okay, let's go back to Berkhoff. I'm pretty excited about this one. This has been pretty good. Let's keep going here. Okay, part two. Part two. Yeah. Part two. Present day false conceptions of God involving. Oh, this is Berkhoff, by the way. Louis Berkhoff. Systematic theology. Present day false conceptions of God involving a denial of the true God. False conceptions involving. No. There are several false conceptions of God current in our day, which involve a denial of the theistic conception of God. A brief indication of the most important of these must suffice in this connection. Let's see. What is it? A. An immanent and impersonal God. B. A finite and personal God. C. God as the personification of a mere abstract idea. A. An immanent and impersonal God. Theism has always believed in a God who is both transcendent and immanent. Deism removed God from the world and stressed his transcendence at the expense of his immanence. Under the influence of pantheism, however, the pendulum swung in the other direction. It identified God in the nth world and did not recognize a divine being distinct from and infinitely exalted above his creation. Excuse me. Through Schleiermacher, the tendency to make God continuous with the world gained a footing in theology. He completely ignores the transcendent God and recognizes only a God that can be known by human experience and manifests himself in Christian consciences as absolute causality, to which a feeling of absolute dependence corresponds. The attributes we ascribe to God are, in this view, merely symbolical expressions of the various modes of this feeling of dependence, subjective ideas without any corresponding reality. Wait, I got so confused. What are we talking about? It says immanent and impersonal? Wait, okay, I'm confused. Let's just keep going. His earlier and his later representations of God seem to differ somewhat, and interpreters of Schleiermacher differ as to the way in which his statements must be harmonized. Brunner would seem to be quite correct, however, when he says that with him the universe takes the place of God, though the latter name is used, and that he conceives of God both as identical with the universe and as the unity lying behind it. What does this mean? I'm confused. It often seems as if his distinction between God and the world is only an ideal one, namely, the distinction between the world as a unity and the world in its manifold manifestations. What? What are we talking about? He frequently speaks of God as the universum, or the maybe people who have like read Schleiermacher actually know what Burgard is saying. It's probably written for a more educated person. He frequently speaks of God as the universum, or the Weltall, and argues against the personality of God, though inconsistently also speaking as if we could have communion with him in Christ. These views of Schleiermacher, making God continuous with the world, largely dominate the theology of the past century, and it is this view that Barth is combating with his strong emphasis on God as the holy other. I have heard of that. I've heard of that. Okay, good to know. Barth says the holy other. Schleiermacher says in the world, or continuous with the world. Okay, but it's impersonal. Oh, it's impersonal and it's immanent because it's like in the world or whatever. Okay, I got you. B, if finite and personal. Finite and personal. Finite, kind of like a person or a human. The idea of a finite God or gods is not new, but as old as polytheism and henotheism. The idea fits in with pluralism, but not with philosophical monism or theological monotheism. Theism has always regarded God as an absolute personal being of infinite perfections. During the 19th century, when monistic philosophy was in the ascendant, it became rather common to identify the God of theology with the absolute of philosophy. Toward the end of the century, however, the term absolute as a designation of God fell into disfavor, partly because of its agnostic and pantheistic implications, and partly as a result of the opposition to the idea of the absolute in philosophy, and of the desire to exclude all metaphysics from theology. Bradley regarded the God of the Christian religion as a part of the absolute, and James pleaded for a conception of God that was more in harmony with human experience than the idea of an infinite God. He eliminates from God the metaphysical attributes of self-existence, infinity, immutability, and makes the moral attributes supreme. God has an environment, exists in time, and works out a history just like ourselves. Because of the evil that is in the world, he must be thought of as limited in knowledge or power, or both. I see. The condition of the world makes it impossible to believe in a good God, infinite in knowledge and power. The existence of a larger power which is friendly to man. The existence of a larger power which is friendly to man and with which he can commune meets all the practical needs and experiences of religion under this view. James conceived of this power as personal, but was not willing to express himself as to whether he believes in one finite God or a number of them. Bergson added to this conception of James the idea of a struggling and growing God, constantly drawing upon his environment. Others who defended the idea of a finite God, though in different ways, are Hobhouse, Schiller, James Ward, Rashdall, and H.G. Wells. C. God is the personification of a mere abstract idea. Personification of an abstract idea. Yeah, we've heard this one before. It has become quite the vogue in modern liberal theology to regard the name God as a mere symbol, standing for some cosmic process, some universal will or power, or some lofty and comprehensive ideal. The statement is repeatedly made that If God once created man in his image, man is now returning the compliment by creating God in man's image. That's perverse. It is said of Harry Elmer Barnes that he once said in one of his laboratory classes, quote, "Gentlemen, we shall now proceed to create God." That's messed up. That was a very blunt expression of a rather common idea. Most of those who reject the theistic view of God still profess faith in God, but he is a God of their own imagination. The form which he assumes at any particular time depends, according to Shaler Matthews, on the thought patterns of that day. If in pre-war times the controlling pattern was that of an autocratic sovereign demanding absolute obedience, now it is that of a democratic ruler eager to serve all his subjects. Since the days of Comte, there has been a tendency to personify the social order of humanity as a whole, and to worship this personification. The so-called meliorists, or social theologians, reveal a tendency to identify God in some way with the social order, and the new psychologists inform us that the idea of God is a projection of the human mind, which in its early stages is inclined to make images of its experiences and to clothe them with quasi-personality. Luba is of the opinion that this illusion of God has served a useful purpose, but that the time is coming when the idea of God will be no more needed. A few definitions will serve to show the present-day trend. Quote, "God is the eminent spirit of the community," from Royce. He is, quote, "that quality in human society which supports and enriches humanity in its spiritual quest." Gerald Burney Smith. Quote, "God is the totality of relations, constituting the whole social order of growing humanity," from E.S. Ames. Quote, "The word God is a symbol to designate the universe and its ideal form and capacity." G.B. Foster. Quote, "God is our conception, born of social experience, of this personally evolving and personally responsive elements of our cosmic environment, with which we are organically related." Shaler Matthews. It's the wisdom of the world right there. It need hardly be said that the God so defined is not a personal God and does not answer to the deepest needs of the human heart. Facts. 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 Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. Right. Right. Sermons of William Gurnall. It's been absolutely excellent. Third stratagem, Satan endeavors to make the Christian throw away his breastplate by scaring him with the contradictive opposition and feud which it brings from the world. And answer first. Thy God, Christian, whom thou servest, commands the tongues, hands, yea, hearts of all men. He can, when he pleaseth, without the least abating in thy holy course, give thee to find favor in the eyes of those thou most fearest. We did that one last time. Answer second. Suppose thy holy walking stirs up the wrath of ungodly ones against thee. Know that there may be more mercy in their hatred than in their love. Again, we can never lose the love or incur the wrath of men. upon better and more advantageous terms than for keeping our breastplate of righteousness close to us. And why? Because, first, when we lose for this any love for men, we gain God's blessing instead of it. And second, because while thy holy walking loseth thee some love from the world, it gains thee the more reverence and honor. I'm assuming from them. Yeah, so first, when we lose this for any love from men, when we lose righteousness for any love from men, we gain God's blessing instead of it. Wait, what? Wait. Did I mess that up? Oh. Oh, no, yeah. I just said it wrong. It's first when we lose for this, when we lose for righteousness, any love from men. The grammar is weird. We gain God's blessing instead of it. Quote, blessed are ye when all men speak evil of you falsely for my name's sake. Matthew 5:11. God's blessing is a good roof over our head to defend us from the storm of man's wrath. Oh, it is sad when a Christian opens the mouths of the wicked by some unholy action to speak evil of him. No promise will open then its door to hide thee from the storm of their railing tongues. Man reviles and God frowns. Little welcome such a one has when he returns home to look into his own conscience or converse with his God. But when it is for thy holiness they hate thee, God is bound by promise to pay thee love for their hatred, blessing for their cursing. And truly that courtier has little cause to complain that for a little disrespect from others that cannot hurt him is advanced higher in his prince's favor. What's a courtier? Second, while thy holy walking loseth thee some love from the world, it gains thee the more reverence and honor from the world, I'm assuming. They that will not love thee because thou art holy cannot choose but fear and reverence thee at the same time for what they hate thee. Let a saint comply with the wicked and remit a little of his holiness to correspond with them, and he loses by the hand, as to his interest, I mean, in them. For by gaining a little false love, he loses that true honor which inwardly their consciences paid to his holiness. A Christian walking in the power of holiness is like Samson in his strength. The wicked fear him, but when he shows an impotent spirit by any indecency in his course to his holy profession, then presently he is taken prisoner by them, and falls under both the lash of their tongue and the scorn of their hearts. They can now dance about such a one, and make him their May game, whose holiness even now kept him in awe. It is not poverty or the baseness of thy outward state in the world that will render thee contemptible, so long as thou keepest thy breastplate of righteousness on. There sits majesty in the brow of holiness, though clad in rags. Righteous David commands reverence from wicked Saul. The king himself does this homage to his poor exiled subject. Quote, I wept and said to David, thou art more righteous than I. 1 Samuel 24:17. Aye, this is as it should be when carnal men are forced to acknowledge that they are outshot by the holy lives of Christians. O Christians, do some singular thing, what the best of your merely civil neighbors cannot do. O Christians, do some singular thing, what the best of your merely civil neighbors cannot do, and you sit sure in the throne of their consciences, even when they throw you out of their hearts and affections. So long as the magicians did something like the miracles Moses wrought, they thought themselves as good men as he. But when they were nonplussed, wow, haven't heard that word in a while. When they were nonplussed in the plague of lice, and could not, with all their art, produce the like, they acknowledged, quote, the finger of God to be in it. Exodus 8:16. do no more than carnal men do, and you stand but level with themselves in their opinions of you. Yea, they think themselves better than you, because they equal you, who pretend to holiness more than they. It's funny. It is expected that everyone in the calling he professeth should more than a little exceed another that is not of that calling, which if he do not, he becomes contemptible. We come to the application, in which we shall be the shorter, having sprinkled something of this nature all along as we handle the part. Doctrinal part. Yeah, I mean that's what I think that's what J.I. Packer said about the Puritans is that their doctrine. So they split the sermon into doctrine and application, which is pretty base. And then J.I. Packer said of the Puritans that their doctrine was application and their application was doctrine. Just to say they were completely intertwined together and inseparable. Inseparable. All right, enough of that. Let's should we actually no. Let's pause there. The application. Let's continue with Henry. And where were we? I don't know. I think and no. Damn, this is bad. I don't remember where we are. Oh man. Oh, it must be chapter 9 verse 8, I think. Just so you guys know, not that it's important at all, but the reason I can't figure out where I am is because first of all, look at how many words are on that page. It's ridiculous. And second of all, I put the bookmark. Someone's taking out their trash at 2 a.m. Second of all, I put the bookmark in the book, and I don't remember in my mind whether I stopped on the first leaf or the second leaf. So it's only mostly I stop at the end of the section for the commentary for a specific passage. So it's a problem when there's multiple options. Like here, there's 2 potential stopping points. Okay, I'm going to guess chapter 9, verse 8. So here's chapter 9, verses 8 through 11. And God spake unto Noah. God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of the flood, neither shall there be any more a flood to destroy the earth. Here is first the general establishment of God's covenant with the new world and the extent of that covenant. Here observe first, God is graciously pleased to deal with man in the way of a covenant, wherein God greatly magnifies his condescending favor and greatly encourages man's duty and obedience as a reasonable and gainful service. Second, that all God's covenants with man are of his own making. Behold, it is thus expressed both to raise our admiration Behold and wonder that though God be high, yet he has this respect to man, and to confirm our assurances of the validity of the covenant. Quote, behold and see, I make it. I that am faithful and able to make it good. Third, that God's covenants are established more firmly than the pillars of heaven or the foundations of the earth, and cannot be disannulled. Fourth, that God's covenants are made with the covenanters and with their seed. The promise is to them and their children. Fifth, that those may be taken into covenant with God and receive the benefit of it who yet are not capable of restipulating or giving their own consent. For this covenant is made with every living creature, every beast of the earth. I picked up on that, yeah. It's made with all the living creatures. Second, the particular intention of this covenant. It was designed to secure the word from another deluge. There shall not be any more a flood. There shall not any more be a flood. God had drowned the world once, and still it was as filthy and provoking as ever. And God foresaw the wickedness of it, and yet promised he would never drown it any more, for he deals not with us according to our sins. It is owing to God's goodness and faithfulness, not to any reformation of the world, that has not often been deluged, and that it is not deluged now. As the old world was ruined to be a monument of justice, so this world remains to this day a monument of mercy. Whoa. Whoa. According to the oath of God, that the waters of Noah should no more return to cover the earth. That's true. Wow. I feel like almost you could apply it to more things than, like, you know how people look at actually someone was talking about, one of the teachers at my church was talking about the judgment and severity of God in the Old Testament in a couple of different examples, but the specific example was like Uzzah, whoever touched the ark and was struck down dead. I wonder if it's valid that you could say that was a, come on, where is it? That was a monument of justice. And that every time someone does something like touching the ark and is not struck down dead, it's a monument of mercy. Anyways, pardon that digression. This promise of God keeps the sea and clouds in their decreed place and sets them gates and bars. Hitherto they shall come. Job 38. If the sea should flow but for a few days, as it does twice every day for a few hours, what desolation would it make? And how destructive would the clouds be if such showers as we have sometimes seen were continued long? But God, by flowing seas and sweeping rains, shows what he could do in his wrath, and yet, by preserving the earth from being deluged between both, shows what he can do in mercy and will do in truth. Wow. Let us give him the glory of his mercy in promising and of his truth in performing. The glory of mercy in promising, and of his truth in performing. This promise does not hinder, first, but that God may bring other wasting judgments upon mankind. For though he has here bound himself not to use this arrow any more, yet he has other arrows in his quiver. Second, nor but that he may destroy particular places and countries by the inundations of the sea or rivers. Third, nor will the destruction of the world at the last day be by fire and any breach of his promise. Sin which what? Third, nor will the destruction of the world at the last day by fire be any breach of his promise. Sin which drowned the old world will burn this. Oh my gosh. Sin which drowned the old world will burn this. This is advanced. I don't know. This sounds advanced. I'm confusing myself. All right. So now those are the main books. Here's the fun book for today. Let's re-up on the water situation, and I'll come back. I washed some grapes. I like grapes. This stream is sponsored by grapes. Green grapes, to be exact. These grapes are good. Woo. It's so peaceful at 2 a.m. There's no loud cars driving by. It's great. This stream is sponsored by grapes. It's good. It's good stuff. Good. The grapes are no more. We're gonna keep reading Austen. Hopefully, we'll finish this soon. Because I feel like at this point we've already experienced like so much of what made the book great. So I kind of, you always get this anxiety, right? Like when you want to finish something, you want to finish stuff, and I get the dopamine. We want to finish stuff. Okay, chapter 17 of volume 2. What happened last time? I really don't remember. Oh, yeah. Chapter 17. Elizabeth's impatience to acquaint Jane with what had happened could no longer be overcome. Oh boy, let's see what happened. And at length resolving to suppress every particular in which her sister was concerned, in preparing her to be surprised, she related to her the next morning the chief of the scene between Mr. Darcy and herself. Miss Bennet's astonishment was soon lessened by the strong sisterly partiality which made any admiration of Elizabeth appear perfectly natural. I see. Astonishment was lessened. The strong sisterly partiality made the admiration of Elizabeth appear perfectly natural, and all surprise was shortly lost in other feelings. She was sorry that Mr. Darcy should have delivered his sentiments in a manner so little suited to recommending them. But still more was she grieved for the unhappiness which her sister's refusal must have given him. I wonder if she's going to recommend not refusing him. He's kind of cool. He's kind of awesome. Quote, his being so sure of succeeding was wrong, said she, and certainly he ought not to have appeared. Oh, and certainly not ought to have appeared. But consider how much it must increase his disappointment. Indeed, replied Elizabeth, I am heartily sorry for him, but he has other feelings which will probably soon drive away his regard for me. Oh, do not blame me, however, for refusing him. Jane says, blame you? Oh, no. But you blame me for having spoken so warmly of Wickham. No, I do not know that you were wrong in saying what you did, but you will know it when I have told you what happened the very next day. Oh, let's go. She then spoke of the letter, repeating the whole of its contents as far as they concerned George Wickham. And no further, hopefully. What a stroke was this for poor Jane, who would willingly have gone through the world without believing that so much wickedness existed in the whole race of mankind, as was here collected in one individual. Nor was Darcy's vindication, though grateful to her feelings. Nor was Darcy's vindication. Nor was Darcy's vindication, though grateful. Sorry, I got distracted. Nor was Darcy's vindication, though grateful to her feelings, capable of consoling her for such discovery. Most earnestly did she labor to prove the probability of error and seek to clear one without involving the other. This will not do, said Elizabeth. You never will be able to make both of them good for anything. Take your choice, but you must be satisfied with only one. Thank you, Captain Obvious. There is but such a quantity of merit between them, just enough to make one good sort of man. And of late it has been shifting about very much. Again, thank you, Captain Obvious. For my part, I am inclined to believe it all Mr. Darcy's, but you shall do as you choose. It was some time, however, before a smile could be extorted from Jane. I do not know when I have been more shocked, said she. Wickham so very bad. It is almost past belief. And poor Mr. Darcy, dear Lizzie, only consider what he must have suffered. Such a disappointment, and with the knowledge of your ill opinion too, and having to relate such a thing of his sister. It is really too distressing. I'm sure you must feel it so. Oh no, my regret and compassion are all done away by seeing you so full of broth. Broth. Oh, both. Both. Oh no, my regret and compassion are all done away by seeing you so full of both. I know you will do him such ample justice that I am growing every moment more unconcerned and indifferent. Your profusion makes me saving, and if you lament over him much longer, my heart will be as light as a feather. Poor Wickham, there is such an expression of goodness in his countenance, such an openness and gentleness in his manner. I have to take a picture of this. I was just telling my friend that he would love the language of this book because it sounds so funny to modern English speakers, just because it's different. Yeah, this is the perfect example. The sentence. Oh, poor Wickham, there is such an expression of goodness in his countenance. Such an openness and gentleness in his manner. Let's go back to it. This is so funny, dude. Okay, we're done. All right. Man, what a gem. There certainly was some great mismanagement in the education of those two young men. One has got all the goodness, and the other all the appearance of it. Ha 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 ha. I never thought Mr. Darcy so deficient in the appearance of it as you used to do. That's true. I think that's Jane speaking. And yet I meant to be uncommonly clever in taking so decided a dislike to him without any reason. It is such a spur to one's genius, such an opening for wit, to have a dislike of that kind. One may be continually abusive without saying anything just, but one cannot always be laughing at a man without now and then stumbling on something witty. Lizzie, when you first read that letter, I am sure you could not treat the matter as you do now. Yeah, you would be right. She was a wreck. Indeed, I could not. I was uncomfortable enough. I was very uncomfortable. I may say unhappy. I may say unhappy. And with no one to speak to of what I felt, no Jane to comfort me and say that I had not been so very weak and vain and nonsensical as I knew I had. Oh, how I wanted you. How unfortunate that you should have used such very strong expressions in speaking at Wickham to Mr. Darcy, for now they do appear wholly undeserved. Yeah, stating the obvious, dude. Is that going to be this whole chapter? Certainly, but the misfortune of speaking with bitterness is a most natural consequence of the prejudices I had been encouraging. There is one point on which I want your advice. I want you to be told whether I ought or ought not to make our acquaintance in general understand Wickham's character. Hmm. You probably ought. If you can, well, never mind. Let's see. Let's see. Well, do you? I don't know. Miss Bennet paused a little and then replied, "Surely there could be no occasion for exposing him so dreadfully. What is your own opinion?" "That it ought not to be attempted. Mr. Darcy has not authorized me to make his communication public. Sure, you want to be very careful about that. On the contrary, every particular relative to his sister was meant to be kept as much as possible to myself. And if I endeavor to undeceive people as to the rest of his conduct, who will believe me? The general prejudice against Mr. Darcy is so violent it would be the death of half the good people in Meryton to attempt to place him in an amiable light. I am not equal to it. Wickham will soon be gone, and therefore it will not signify to anybody here what he really is. Some time hence it will be all found out, and then we may laugh at their stupidity in not knowing it before. At present I will say nothing about it." That's a good move. It would be such a pain in the butt probably to try to convince everyone of that. What's the point? You are quite right. To have his errors made public might ruin him forever. He is now perhaps sorry for what he has done and anxious to re-establish his character. A character. We must not make him desperate. The tumult of Elizabeth's mind was allayed by this conversation. What does allayed mean? Hey Siri, what does allayed mean? No. Allay. Diminished or put to rest. Relieve or alleviate. The tumult of Elizabeth's mind was relieved by this conversation. She had got rid of two of the secrets which had weighed on her for a fortnight, and was certain of a willing listener in Jane whenever she might wish to talk again of either. But there was still something lurking behind, which prudence forbade the disclosure. She dared not relate the other half of Mr. Darcy's letter, nor explain to her sister how sincerely he had been valued by his friend. Here was knowledge in which no one could partake, and she was sensible that nothing less than a perfect understanding between the parties could justify her in throwing off this last encumbrance of mystery. "And then," said she, "if that very improbable event should ever take place, I shall merely be able to tell what Bingley may tell in a much more agreeable manner himself. The liberty of communication cannot be mine till it has lost all its value." We're confused, but we're going to move on. She was now, on being settled at home, at leisure to observe the real state of her sister's spirits, and Jane was not happy. She still cherished a very tender affection for Bingley, having never even fancied herself in love before. And Jane was not happy. She still cherished a very tender affection for Bingley. Oh no. Having never even fancied herself in love before, her regard had all the warmth of first attachment, and from her age and disposition, greater steadiness than first attachments often boast. And so fervently did she value his remembrance and prefer him to every other man that all her good sense and all her attention to the feelings of her friends were requisite to check the indulgence of those regrets, which must have been injurious to her own health and their tranquility. Basically, she's kind of heartbroken. Well, Lizzie, said Mrs. Bennet one day, what is your opinion now of this sad business of Jane's? For my part, I am determined never to speak of it again to anybody. I told my sister Phillips so the other day, but I cannot find out that Jane saw anything of him in London. Well, he is a very undeserving young man, and I do not suppose there is the least chance in the world of her ever getting him now. There is no talk of his coming to Netherfield again in the summer, and I have inquired of everybody, too, who is likely to know. I do not believe, Elizabeth here, I do not believe that he will ever live at Netherfield any more. Oh, well, it is just as he chooses. Nobody wants him to come, though I shall always say that he used my daughter extremely ill. And if I were her, I would not have put up with it. Well, my comfort is, I'm sure Jane will not die if will. Huh? Oh, that's sad. Well, my comfort is, I'm sure Jane will die of a broken heart, and then he will be sorry for what he has done. But as Elizabeth could not receive comfort for any such expectation, she made no answer. Well, Lizzie, continued her mother soon afterwards, and so the Collinses live very comfortable, do they? Well, well, I only hope it will last. And what sort of table do they keep? Charlotte is an excellent manager, I dare say. If she is half as sharp as her mother, she is saving enough. There is nothing extravagant in their housekeeping, I dare say. No, nothing at all. A great deal of good management depend upon it. A great deal of good management depend upon it. Yes, yes, they will take care not to outrun their income. They will never be distressed for money. Well, how much good may it do them? And so I suppose they often talk of having Longbourn when your father is dead. They look upon it quite as their own, I dare say, whenever that happens. It was a subject which they cannot mention before me. No, it would have been strange if they had, but I make no doubt they often talk of it between themselves. Well, if they can be easy with an estate that is not lawfully their own, so much the better. I should be ashamed of having one that was only entitled. I should be ashamed of having one that was only entailed on me. And that's how we end with the choice. I don't know. With the biting words of Miss Bennet, Mrs. rather Bennet. All right, thank you for joining. Have a good day, week. Yeah, have a good one. See ya.